90% of them are going to leave, without even looking at the page. 9% of them are going to engage for 5 seconds, and 1% of them are going to engage. Let's figure out how to get more, that second pipeline going. So those are the sorts of things that you wind up doing as a data scientist.
In the traditional businesses, we have to keep all the inventory and wait for the right time to sell it to the market. Also, we have to take all the hassle of transactions of payments and shipments. But in today's age, we can leverage the information, we can make digital products. Today's podcast is all about wealth creation. We have Mr. Noah Healy, who has a vast experience in data analytics. He will show the power of mathematics to us. Also, he made an intelligent business model out of it. Kindly stay tuned for the whole podcast. Also, if you like our podcast, guys, kindly like it, share it, comment your views on it. Also, you can subscribe to our podcast channel for more such valuable content. Thank you so much. Kindly check out the whole podcast. Alright, so guys, today we have Mr. Noah Healy, and he started as a programmer. Then he applied his skills in data analysis, data engineering, and then he finally ended up being an entrepreneur. So please welcome Mr. Noah Healy.
Thanks for having me here.
I'm curious about your journey. Like, how did you start? Like, you first did some programming, then you did you are also have a keen interest in mathematics, and then you like also did some software engineering part, and then you being an entrepreneur. So how did it all started?
So sure, my interest in mathematics is lifelong. It's just always come relatively naturally to me, and I find it fascinating that there's just so much richness and depth there that you can just continue exploring. So when the time came for college, that seemed like a natural path, and engineering looked like a good way to utilize my facility with mathematics. So I went to college, again, not really without a plan, and wound up studying most of the subjects that they had to offer there, but always sort of staying with a core of mathematics. Um, I, I frequently don't have a plan, but I try to have some principles for having my options be open. So I got out, I'd studied the thing that I had studied the most of was, well, mathematics, but after that, nuclear engineering, and there weren't particularly good careers in that space. So that's where I got into programming. And then once I'd gotten a job as a programmer, that's when I really started studying programming in depth. During my schooling, programming was mostly introduced as sort of game development, and I wasn't terribly interested in doing graphics and games, so I didn't really think programming was that interesting. Once I was doing it professionally and saw it as a mathematical discipline, I became a lot more interested in it. And once again, there's specific skills that you can gain that also have more general applicability. One of the things about computational mathematics, which is the mathematics that really informs programming, is that you can analyze systems for their efficiency. And there's a whole bag of known techniques and strategies for coming up with new techniques that can really change the situation. In my first job, in my first year, because the dot-com crash was happening and that company folded, I had two separate projects where I was able to improve the operation of a given system by a factor of more than 1 million. So that's that's pretty insane in the physical world. But it's something that just happens in the programming world with alarming frequency.
That's beautiful, actually. I would like to add something in this. Your journey is very adventurous, I must say. So, first of all, I would also like to add that mathematics is like it make us live. For example, many people dies very early mentally at the age of 30 to 35. They literally die. After a certain period of time, they don't have any purpose in life. They don't have something in life. But mathematics is the thing that you can interact with the figures and all, and then you finally can you can apply them in the real world also. So coming to the next question. Yeah, please continue. Yeah.
So yeah, that I think is possibly the single coolest thing about mathematics, is
Yeah.
that it's this thing that you can sort of imagine and daydream, and also have practical real world applications for at the same time. So it combines sort of this childish flight of fancy desire in life with also this sort of hard-headed grown-up practicality, and it's sort of the only thing that we do as humans that can touch both of those realms at the same time that effectively.
Yeah. So also there are many contradictions in life also. For example, some people say that I cannot remember the facts and figures. But the thing is, numbers are the only constituents of a big engineering project. If you don't remember numbers, if you cannot work with numbers, then you cannot build a big project. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's absolutely correct. The details matter, and a big project consists of more details. And so if you don't have ways to cope with that, then, you know, if you're building a skyscraper or a dam or a bridge and the numbers don't add up, then neither will the building, and that will be a disaster.
That's correct. So you worked as a data scientist as well, or data analyst. First of all, we need to clear this thing because many people are very confused. Like, what is data science? What is a data scientist? What is a data analyst? What are the jobs? Can you please specify? Like, if you have work in this field, so can you please?
Yeah, sure. So the titles, as you say, are very confusing.
Yeah.
Data scientist is gaining in popularity as a title these days, and a lot of that has to do with the emergence of computer technology. So I started my professional career in the year 2000. We've been through many generations of computer capacity
Yes.
in that time frame, and so with much cheaper access to disk and RAM and processor speed, more and more sophisticated techniques are available to analyze information. But at core, the data scientist, going back to your thing about numbers, science is essentially the process of measuring things. And mathematics can help us with that, because statistics and calculus and geometry are all key concepts in developing measurement systems and understanding what the outputs of measurement systems can mean, learning about error and error correction and so on. And so data science has become an umbrella term to describe that process of measuring that has been made available to us with these tools. Figuring out the job combines understanding the tools and what they're capable of, and figuring out what would or wouldn't be useful to measure in a general context. So the amount of information that's basically produced by the universe is well beyond our capacity to currently just absorb, and even the amounts that we have, we can't really synthesize terribly well. And so in a business context, knowing sort of what's going on to be able to make better decisions is a key driver for being successful. It's the only thing that you can actually do to help yourself.
Yes.
And as small as it is, if you don't do that, then it's so much harder to succeed. So having people with those capacities to use the tools that we have has become a more and more popular thing for businesses to invest in. And so if you want to get on that train, again, it's studying mathematics and studying multiple disciplines of mathematics, also science. Things like physics, chemistry, biology have developed statistics and measuring and practical experience of how these things work together. So picking those things up becomes a transferable skill that you can then use in other contexts. So one of my earliest experiences going into the professional world, I had studied nuclear engineering and had taken a lab on radiation detection. And it turns out that the mathematics of radiation detection is identical to the mathematics of web tracking, because they're at the sort of abstract level exactly the same sorts of events. They are discrete events that have a large number of identifying characteristics that are produced at random by the outside world. And so all of the math that I had learned doing gamma ray or neutron experiments turned out to be 100% applicable to analyzing user behavior on websites or queue sizes, stuff like that. So these kinds of things all fold in on one another, and that toolkit, I wouldn't say that it's easy to develop, but what's very important about it is that it's rare to develop. And as people are recognizing that it's a useful thing to have, if you've developed it, then that's a marketable skill.
So just you said that I also actually worked on data, and actually it says that if you have even random numbers on random patterns or something, but if you gather them and properly analyze them, then you will actually find a pattern. So that is, I can relate this thing. I've seen one movie, the one Indian movie, that is Koi Mil Gaya, his name, and the actor is Hrithik Roshan. So in that movie, like he's shown that he got some intelligent mind, and he developed one very important machine. It can predict the future of a person if it gives biometrics to that machine. So I was very curious from the childhood. Like it was back in 2004. I've seen that movie. So sitting with the data analyst, I would like to ask you that is it possible, for example, by gathering the current situations and quantifying the possibilities, quantifying the potential of that person, like referring to his history and predicting his future. So is it actually possible, like combining astrology, physics and maths, and if we can do something in future, like someone's prediction of a future, is it possible? What do you think?
So exact prediction of the future has a logical problem. And it's the same logical problem that sort of time travel has.
Yeah.
If you knew what was going to happen, then you could make decisions to make different things happen, and then what you knew was going to happen won't happen.
Exactly.
So there's a foundational disconnect there. However, it isn't actually necessary to have this kind of situation where you know precisely what the third guy in the line, at the grocery store is going to do for the next 6 weeks. With statistics, what we can do is not sort of predict what people are going to do, but create well understood buckets and figure out how much of the sample that you're dealing with is going to do different things. So if you're dealing with one person, they might do just about anything. If you're dealing with one person and they have 10 choices, well, okay, they're going to do one of those 10 things, and you don't really know which one it's going to be. But if you're dealing with 1,000 people and they each have 10 choices, it's actually really unlikely that 100 people will do each of the 10 choices. And so at that point, you can start figuring out, this thing's number 1, that thing's number 2, that one over there is number 10. And at that point, you can start figuring out what characteristics of the top choice and the bottom choice have that make them top and bottom choices. Again, going back to my very early experience on websites, pretty much the most popular thing to do is whatever's on top of the page. It doesn't matter if it's a good thing or a bad thing on top of the page. People go to the top of the page because it's right there. And if it's written in English, because we read from right to left, the top right hand, or left to right, the top left hand corner of the page, that's the first thing you do. And so that's those sorts of psychological tendencies or sociological tendencies are things that you can confirm or learn about within the context of a scaled back constrained system. And that's where you can build out customer modeling, where it's not Akil just showed up and I know what he wants before he gets here. It's 10,000 people are going to hit, whatever I'm offering in the next hour. This is how it breaks down. 90% of them are going to leave, without even looking at the page. 9% of them are going to engage for 5 seconds and then swipe to the next thing on their phone. 1% of them are going to engage and they're going to do whatever the simplest thing to do on my site is. And then I'll retain 1% of those people. And so I'll get one person out of this. And then you can do measurement on the other side too, where you work out your own internal logistics, economics, and so on, and determine that customers that come in through this pipeline are worth $20 a year. Customers that come in through that pipeline are worth $200 a year. Let's figure out how to get more, that second pipeline going. So those are the sorts of things that you wind up doing as a data scientist.
Yeah. So to understand customers' behavior, it is very important to know that data, like you categorize them and all these things, so you can understand that behavior and can sell more.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, basically, if you don't have external input from the outside world, whatever you're doing is just a fantasy that you dreamed up. And some of those work out, decently. But most people who daydream through life wind up, walking off a cliff at some point.
It should be outside in. Marketing should always be outside in. I have read this somewhere. in the book, yes, Marketing Management by Philip Kotler. So he quoted this, that marketing should be outside in always, because you have to collect the customer's data. You cannot create your fantasies and then sell more. The only strategy is to gather the data and then collect their behavior and then do the appropriate actions. So that I can.
Well, think just how, you work as a biological system. You open your eyes and you look at the world, and then you go do something. You don't go do something with your eyes closed. So
Yeah, correct.
senses are at the very beginning of how we react to the world, and in many cases at the very beginning of how we act in the world. And yeah, a lot of businesses effectively have blinded themselves because they're just not looking at the outside world.